got a fun problem here today, solving equations problem. We have a lot of distributive property going on. I have this -3, this 4, this piece over here that I'm going to talk about in some detail. We got variables on both sides, so a lot to keep track of. So let's go through this carefully. So the first thing I want to do is I want to distribute. So I'm going to do -3 times y, -3 times -5. I'm going to do 4 times 3, 4 times -y. And then on the other side of the equation, I have this -2 times -y minus 3. So what I have to do here is I have to distribute the -2, because it's going to be -2 times -y, -2 times -3. Here's what's going to happen if you don't do that. If you forget to distribute the negative, and you just distribute the 2, here's how you'd have to write that. You'd have to write minus, and then parentheses again with the 2 times -y, so it'd be -2y, and then you'd have 2 times -3, which would be -6. So you'd still have to end up distributing the negative inside the parentheses. But what's going to happen, though, is a lot of people who are going through these equations won't do that. They'll distribute the 2, but then they won't put it in parentheses. You won't realize that, oh, wait, this is -2 times -y minus 3. So you got to make that connection that you are doing -2 times of all this. So you're subtracting off this entire statement here. So really easy to make that mistake. So let me backtrack a little bit here. Let me erase this. So now, going back to the just distributive property step, I'm going to distribute -3 over here. -3 times y is -3y. -3 times -5 is +15. Plus 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times -y is -4y. Equals, and then we have 3. -2 times -y is +2y. -2 times -3 is +6. A lot of room for error there. Very easy to make a mistake somewhere in those steps, especially with all of these negatives flying around. So now we want to combine like terms on both sides of the equal sign, and then we're going to start maneuvering left and right. So let's just stick with combining like terms for now. So I have a -3y on the left side and a -4y on the left side. Those are going to be like terms. I have a 15 plus 12. Those are going to be like terms on the left side. On the right side, we just have this 3 plus 6. So let's rewrite this. I have -3y minus 4y. Be careful there. They're on the same side of the equal sign, so we're doing -3 minus 4, which is -7y. 15 plus 12 is 27. So they're on the same side, so you combine like terms. A very common mistake is new students to solving equations will get in this habit of like, well, if I want to move the 4y over, you'd add 4y over, right? Like you'd add the 4y over to both sides. That's correct. That's not wrong. But you get in this habit of always doing opposite operations. So if you're trying to combine something like -3y and -4y, you just not really think, and you just add 4y like that. You think like, oh, I have to add it over because that's how I solve equations. Only when you are moving across that equal sign, that's when you want to perform the opposite operation. So left side's taken care of. Let's do the right side. We just had that 3 plus 6, which is 9. So I'm going to rewrite this as 2y plus 9. Now we just have variables on both sides. We have our constants on both sides, so we have to make the decision how we want to go about doing this. I'm going to add the 7y over. So I'm going to keep everything positive if I could. So I'm going to add the 7y. Meanwhile, I'm also going to subtract 9. I'm going to take care of those constants. So 27 minus 9 is 18. 2y plus 7y is 9y. And then we divide by 9 to solve for y. Y equals 2. So we get y is equal to 2 after all of that. After all that crazy solving, we get y is equal to 2. I think if you're going to make a mistake, it's probably going to come right here in this very first step. The very first step is where mistakes happen. You might mess up this negative here, -3 times y, -3 times -5. You might mess up this key step, this -2 times -y, -2 times -3. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if you just read through that first line again, like you just double check to make sure you did all of that. And while I'm telling you to double check, let's just double check my first line. -3 times y is -3y. -3 times -5 is +15. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times negative y is negative 4y. And then we have 3 minus 2 times negative y is going to be positive. Negative 2 times negative 3 is positive. So it's good. As long as I didn't make any sort of just calculation errors with adding or subtracting, I think we're good. And you could check your answer if you wanted to, meaning you could plug in y back into the original equation if you were really feeling a little unconfident with it. But that is how we solve that. So a little intimidating, but if you're careful, it's not too bad.